Why did a king eat his own kids? It sounds strange, but it is true. Long ago, in Greek myths, a king was so scared of losing his power that he swallowed his own children, one by one. This is just the start of a story filled with gods, monsters, and heroes. In this video, we will learn how the world began. We will meet the gods who lived on top of a mountain called Olympus. We will follow brave heroes who fought monsters and went on long journeys. We will also learn about a huge war that changed history forever. But first, let us ask a simple question. Why do these old stories still matter today? You may not know it, but you use these stories every single day. When someone talks too much about themselves, we call them a narcissist. That word comes from a Greek myth. When a strong person has one small weakness, we call it their Achilles heel. That name comes from a Greek hero. Even the planets in our sky, like Mars and Venus, are named after these very gods. These stories are not just old tales. They are the roots of many things we still use today, in movies, in books, and even in everyday talk. Big movies, like superhero films, borrow ideas from these very myths. A hero who is strong, but flawed. A god who is powerful, but jealous. Sound familiar? That is because the Greeks did something new for their time. They did not make their gods perfect. They made them human. Their gods felt anger, love, jealousy, and fear, just like we do. That is why these stories still feel real, even after thousands of years. So, get ready. In the next hour, we will travel back to the very start of everything. We will see how gods were born from nothing. We will watch a son turn against his own father. We will meet heroes who became legends. And in the end, we will follow one man on a journey home that took him 10 long years. This is the full story of Greek mythology. Let us begin at the very beginning when there was nothing at all. Chapter 1. The beginning of everything. Let us go back to the very start of everything. Before the earth, before the sky, before even the gods, there was nothing. No light, no sound, no shape. Just empty space, stretching out forever. The Greeks had a name for this empty space. They called it chaos. Chaos was not chaos the way we use the word today. It did not mean noise or mess or confusion. It simply meant a huge, empty gap. A space with nothing in it at all. No up, no down, no time, no sound. Just endless, silent nothing. But out of this nothing, something strange began to happen. Slowly, things started to form. The first of these things was Earth. The Greeks called her Gaia. Gaia was solid and strong, and she would last forever. She became the very ground beneath everything else. Along with Gaia, a few other basic things appeared too. There was Tartarus, a deep, dark pit far below the earth. There was also Eros, a strange force of attraction that would later pull other things together. So, from nothing came a few simple pieces. Earth, a deep pit, and a pulling force. It was a small beginning, but it was a beginning all the same. Earth, or Gaia, did not stay alone for long. She created a partner of her own. She made the sky, and the Greeks called him Uranus. Uranus stretched out above Gaia, covering her completely, like a great blanket made of stars. Together, Earth and sky, Gaia and Uranus, had children. But these were not normal children. They were huge, powerful beings, unlike anything the world had seen before. These children were called the Titans. There were 12 Titans in total. 6 sons and 6 daughters. Some of them were strong and steady like solid rock. Others were strange and wild, almost impossible to imagine. A few of them controlled huge forces of nature like the sun, the moon, and the great rivers of the world. But Gaia did not only give birth to Titans. She had other children too, even stranger than the Titans themselves. Some of these children had only one large eye, right in the middle of their head. These were called the Cyclopes. Others had 100 hands and 50 heads each. These were called the 100-handed ones. To us, these children might sound like monsters. But to Gaia, they were simply her children. She loved them the same way she loved the Titans. Uranus, however, did not feel the same way. When Uranus looked at these strange children, he did not feel love. He felt fear. He looked at the Cyclopes with their one giant eye. He looked at the 100-handed ones with their many arms. And he felt only disgust and fright. So, Uranus made a terrible choice. He decided to lock these children away. He pushed them back into the body of the earth itself, deep down, where no light could ever reach them. He trapped his own children, simply because he was afraid of them. Gaia was heartbroken. She had carried these children inside her. She had given them life. And now, her own husband had shut them away in the deepest, darkest part of her own body. The pain of this was almost too much for her to bear. But Gaia was not only sad. She was also angry. Very angry. She decided that Uranus could not be allowed to continue this way. He had to be stopped. So, Gaia came up with a plan. She made a weapon, a large and sharp blade, unlike anything that existed before it. Then, she went to her children, the Titans, and asked for their help. She explained everything. She told them how their father had trapped their brothers and sisters, deep inside the earth. She told them how much pain this had caused her. And then, she asked a simple question. Would any of them help her fight back, against their own father? Most of the Titans stayed silent. They were too afraid. But one of them was not afraid. His name was Cronus, the youngest of all the Titans. Cronus stepped forward, and told his mother that he would help her. He took the weapon she had made, and made a plan of his own. Cronus waited patiently for the right moment. And soon that moment came. When Uranus came close to Gaia once again, Cronus was ready. He struck his father with the weapon his mother had given him. Uranus cried out in pain, a sound so loud it seemed to shake the sky itself. With that single strike, Uranus lost his power completely. He could no longer rule the world the way he once had. Cronus had done what no one else dared to do. He had stood up against his own father and won. And so, Cronus took his father's place. He became the new ruler of the world. For a while, it seemed like a new age had begun. The father who trapped his children was gone. A new king, the very son who fought back, now sat on the throne instead. But here is something important to remember. This whole story started because a father feared his own children and locked them away out of fear. Cronus fought against that fear and won. Yet power has a strange way of changing people. Cronus was once the brave son, who saved his brothers and sisters. He was once the one Titan, who was not afraid to do what was right. But now, sitting on the throne, something inside him was about to shift. Cronus is now the king of the world. He believes his troubles are finally over. But soon, he will make the very same mistake his father once made. Chapter 2: Cronus and the Birth of Zeus. Cronus was now king. But his happiness did not last long. One day, Cronus received a warning. This warning came from his own parents, Gaia and Uranus. They told him something terrible. They said, one day, one of his own children would rise up and take his throne away from him. Cronus did not want to believe this, but deep down, he was afraid. He remembered what he had done to his own father. He had taken Uranus's power in a single moment. Now, he feared the very same thing could happen to him. So, Cronus made a plan. A terrible, cruel plan. He decided that he would not let any of his children grow up. He would stop the danger before it even had a chance to begin. So, every time his wife had a baby, Cronus did something horrible. He swallowed the baby whole. His wife's name was Rhea. Rhea gave birth to child after child after child. and each time Cronus took the baby from her arms and swallowed it, right in front of her. He did not feel guilt or shame. He only felt fear and a need to protect his power. Rhea watched this happen, again and again. Each time, her heart broke a little more. She had carried each child inside her. She had loved each one, even before they were born. And each time, that love was taken away from her, in an instant. By the time Rhea was expecting her sixth child, she could not bear this pain any longer. She knew she had to do something different this time. She could not let this child suffer the same fate as the others. So Rhea came up with a clever, secret plan. She traveled far away to a hidden island called Crete. There, away from her husband's eyes, she gave birth to her sixth child. This child was a boy, and she named him Zeus. Rhea knew she could not keep Zeus with her. Cronus would find out sooner or later. So she made a very difficult choice. She left baby Zeus on the island, in the care of others who could protect him. Then she returned home alone. But Rhea still needed to trick her husband. Cronus was waiting, expecting another baby to swallow. So Rhea took a large stone and wrapped it in soft baby cloth. She carried it to Cronus, acting as if it was truly her newborn child. Cronus did not stop to look closely. He simply grabbed the bundle and swallowed it whole, just like all the others before it. He believed, once again, that he had removed another threat to his throne. But this time, he was wrong. Very wrong. Far away, on the island of Crete, baby Zeus was growing up safely. He was raised in secret, hidden from his father's sight. Years passed, and slowly, quietly, Zeus grew from a helpless baby into a strong, powerful young god. Zeus knew nothing of comfort or an easy life. Instead, he grew up with a single purpose. One day, he would face his father. One day, he would save his brothers and sisters, still trapped inside Cronus. When Zeus finally became strong enough, he made his move. He returned to face his father, after all those years apart. This was not a small, simple fight. This was the moment Zeus had been preparing for, his entire life. With careful planning, and with the help of others, Zeus found a way to make Cronus release everything he had swallowed. One by one, Cronus was forced to bring back the children he had hidden away for so long. Out came Zeus's brothers, and his sisters, fully grown, and ready to fight alongside him. For the first time, Zeus was not alone. Now, Zeus had an army of his own. His brothers, his sisters, and Zeus himself all stood together against their father and the other titans who still supported him. This was the beginning of a massive war. A war between two generations of gods. On one side stood Cronus and the old titans, who had ruled the world for so long. On the other side stood Zeus and his brothers and sisters, fighting for a new future. Neither side was willing to give up easily. This war would not be short or simple. It would stretch on for many long years. Mountains would shake. The sky itself would seem to tremble. Every part of the world would feel the weight of this battle between the old gods and the new. Zeus had waited his entire life for this moment. He had grown up in hiding, simply so he could return and fight for what was right. Now that moment had finally arrived. The old king believed he had removed every danger to his throne. But he was wrong. The very child he thought he had destroyed was now standing before him, ready to change everything. This war will not be small. It will shake the very foundations of the world. And by the time it ends, a new group of gods will be ready to take charge of everything. Chapter 3: Zeus and the new gods take over. The war raged on for many long years. Zeus and his brothers and sisters fought hard against Cronus and the other titans. Neither side was willing to back down. The fighting was so intense that it felt like the entire world might break apart. But slowly, something began to shift. Zeus was not fighting alone. He had brave allies by his side, ready to help him win this war. Some of these allies were huge and powerful, hidden away for a very long time. These were the very children that Uranus once locked deep inside the earth, out of fear. Zeus made a choice that changed everything. He decided to free them. These freed allies were grateful for finally being set loose. In return, they gave Zeus powerful gifts, unlike anything seen before. One gift was a mighty thunderbolt, a weapon so strong it could shake the sky itself. Zeus took this weapon and used it in battle against Cronus and the Titans. With this new power, the war began to turn. Zeus and his brothers and sisters pushed harder and harder. Slowly, the old Titans began to fall back. Their strength, once unstoppable, could not match this new group of gods and their powerful new weapons. In the end, Zeus and his team won the war. Cronus and most of the other Titans were defeated completely. But Zeus did not simply let them go free. He could not risk them ever rising again. So, he made a serious decision. He locked them away deep underground in a dark place far below the earth. This place was called Tartarus. It was deep, dark, and almost impossible to escape. The very Titans, who once ruled the entire world, were now trapped far beneath it. Their time in power had finally come to an end. With the Titans gone, a new question remained. Who would rule the world now? Zeus had two brothers, who fought bravely beside him. One brother was named Poseidon. The other was named Hades. Together, the three brothers decided it was time to share the world between them. They did not want to fight over power the way their father once did. So, instead, they split the world into three parts. Zeus took control of the sky. From now on, he would rule the clouds, the storms, and the wide open heavens above. Poseidon took control of the sea. He would rule the oceans, the waves, and every creature living beneath the water. Hades took control of the underworld. He would rule the land of the dead, deep below the surface of the earth. Each brother now had his own kingdom and his own power. But even though the brothers shared the world between them, one thing was still clear. Zeus was the strongest of the three. Because of this, he became known as the king of all the gods. Zeus did not rule from the sea or from the underworld. Instead, he made his home somewhere else entirely. He chose a mountain, tall enough to touch the sky itself. This mountain was called Mount Olympus. From the very top of this mountain, Zeus watched over the entire world below. Soon, other gods began to join him there as well. One by one, they made their homes on Olympus alongside Zeus. Together, they became known as the Olympian god. For the very first time, order seemed to return to the world. The Titans were gone. The fighting had stopped. A new group of gods, led by Zeus, now watched over everything from high above. It might seem like a perfect ending. A new king, a peaceful kingdom, and a beautiful mountain home in the sky. But there is something important you should know before we go any further. These gods, sitting on Mount Olympus, were not perfect at all. They may have been powerful. They may have controlled the sky, the sea, and even life and death itself. But underneath all that power, they still had feelings, just like humans do. They still felt anger. They still felt jealousy. They still fell in love, and sometimes they still made terrible choices. Zeus himself would soon prove this, again and again. So, do not expect peace to last forever, simply because a new group of gods took charge. In many ways, the real story is only just beginning. Because these gods, despite their great power, were about to fight, to love, and to make the very same mistakes that humans make every single day. Chapter 4: Meet the Gods. Now that Zeus and the Olympian gods were in charge, let us take a moment to meet each one of them. because each god was very different with their own strengths and their own flaws. Let us start with Zeus himself. Zeus was the king of all the gods. He controlled the sky, the storms, and the clouds above. When he was angry, thunder would roar across the heavens. When he was calm, the sky would remain clear and peaceful. But Zeus was far from perfect. Even though he was married, Zeus fell in love with many other women again and again. This caused huge problems for his family and for many others around him. Because of this, a lot of drama and a lot of anger followed Zeus everywhere he went. This brings us to his wife, Hera. Hera was the queen of the gods. She ruled beside Zeus on Mount Olympus. Hera cared deeply about marriage and family. But because of her husband's constant cheating, Hera became known for something else entirely: her jealousy. Whenever Zeus fell for another woman, Hera did not stay quiet. She often took her anger out, not on Zeus himself, but on the women he loved instead. Many stories show Hera getting her revenge in cruel and sometimes frightening ways. Next, let us meet Athena. Athena was one of the smartest gods on Olympus. She was known for her wisdom and for her skill in war. But unlike Ares, whom we will meet shortly, Athena did not simply enjoy fighting for the sake of it. She valued strategy and clear thinking above everything else. Athena's birth was strange, even for a god. She did not come from her mother's body, like most children do. Instead, she was born, fully grown, directly from her father Zeus's own head. It sounds impossible, but that is exactly how the story goes. Now let us talk about Ares. Ares was the god of war. But where Athena valued careful thinking, Ares simply loved the chaos of battle itself. He enjoyed fighting for the excitement and the bloodshed it brought. Because of this, Ares was not very well liked, even among the other gods. Many saw him as reckless and unnecessary. War, without any wisdom behind it, brought little respect from those around him. Let us move on to Apollo. Apollo was a god of many talents. He controlled music and light. He was also known for his gift of future-telling. People often came to him, hoping to learn what would happen in their lives, before it actually happened. Apollo had a twin sister as well, named Artemis. Artemis was very different from her brother. She loved nature, wild animals, and hunting. She spent much of her time away from Mount Olympus, exploring forests and open fields. Artemis was also fiercely independent. She did not like being controlled or told what to do by anyone at all. Now let us talk about Aphrodite. Aphrodite was the goddess of love and beauty. She was said to be the most beautiful being in the entire world, but her powers often caused just as much trouble as they did joy. Wherever Aphrodite went, love followed closely behind. But so did jealousy, heartbreak, and sometimes even war. Many of the biggest dramas in Greek mythology begin with Aphrodite's involvement in one way or another. Next, we meet Hermes. Hermes was the messenger of the gods. He was known for his incredible speed, moving faster than almost anyone else on Olympus. Hermes carried messages between the gods and sometimes even between gods and humans. But Hermes was not only fast. He was also clever and a bit mischievous. He enjoyed playing tricks on gods and humans alike. Many stories describe him using his cleverness to solve problems in unusual and surprising ways. Now let us talk about Hephaestus. Hephaestus was the god of fire and the forge. He was responsible for making weapons, tools, and many powerful objects used by the other god. But Hephaestus did not have an easy childhood. Because of a physical difference, he was treated badly, even thrown down from Mount Olympus at a young age. Despite this painful start, Hephaestus became one of the most skilled and important gods of all. His creations were used by heroes and gods throughout many famous stories. Next, we meet Demeter and her daughter, Persephone. Demeter was the goddess of the harvest. She controlled the growth of crops and plants across the entire earth. Because of her power, the world could either grow rich with food or suffer through empty, dry fields. Demeter loved her daughter, Persephone, more than anything else. But one day, Persephone was taken away, down into the underworld. Demeter's grief over losing her daughter was so powerful that she stopped the earth from growing anything at all. Eventually, a deal was made. Persephone would spend part of the year in the underworld and the rest of the year with her mother above ground. This story explains something important that still matters today. It explains why we have different seasons. When Persephone is with her mother, the earth blooms with life. This is spring and summer. When Persephone returns to the underworld, the earth turns cold and quiet. This is autumn and winter. Finally, let us talk about Hades. Hades ruled the underworld, the land of the dead. Many people imagine him as evil or cruel. But that is not entirely true. Hades was serious and strict, but he was also fair. He did not punish people without reason. He simply ruled his kingdom, the same way his brothers ruled theirs. His job may have been dark and frightening to imagine, but Hades carried it out, with a strong sense of order and justice. So, there we have it. The major gods of Mount Olympus. Zeus, powerful but unfaithful. Hera, proud but deeply jealous. Athena, wise and skilled in battle. Ares, aggressive and disliked by many. Apollo, talented and full of light. Artemis, wild and fiercely independent. Aphrodite, beautiful, but often surrounded by chaos. Hermes, fast, clever, and a little bit of a trickster. Hephaestus, skilled despite a painful past. Demeter and Persephone, connected forever through the changing seasons. And finally, Hades, serious but fair, ruling quietly below. Each god had power, beyond anything a human could imagine. But at the same time, each god also had flaws, feelings, and mistakes, just like the rest of us. This is exactly why these stories have lasted for thousands of years. Because even gods, with all their power, still acted in very human ways. Now that we know the gods, it is time to meet the humans who dared to challenge fate itself. Chapter 5. Great Love Stories. Before we meet the great heroes, let us slow down for a moment. Not every Greek myth is about war or monsters or fighting for power. Some of the most famous stories are about something much softer. Love. Let us begin with a story about a man named Orpheus. Orpheus was known as the greatest musician who ever lived. When he played his instrument and sang his songs, even wild animals would stop just to listen. His music was so beautiful it could calm anger and even bring tears to those who heard it. Orpheus was deeply in love with a woman named Eurydice. The two of them got married, and for a short time they were truly happy. But their happiness did not last long. On the very day of their wedding, something terrible happened. Eurydice was bitten by a poisonous snake. Within moments, she died, right there in the middle of their celebration. Orpheus was completely broken by this sudden loss. He could not accept that his wife was truly gone. So, he made a decision that no ordinary man would even dare to consider. He decided he would travel down into the underworld itself to bring her back. The underworld was a dark, frightening place ruled by Hades. But Orpheus was not afraid. He carried his instrument with him, and as he walked deeper into that dark world, he began to play his music. His songs were so beautiful that even the fearsome creatures guarding the underworld stepped aside to let him pass. Eventually, Orpheus reached Hades himself and stood before him, playing a song filled with grief and love. Hades was moved by the beauty of this music. He agreed to let Eurydice return to the world above. But he gave Orpheus one very important condition. Orpheus must walk ahead of Eurydice, all the way back to the surface. He must not look back at her, not even once, until they had both fully returned to the world above. Orpheus agreed without hesitation. He turned and began walking, with Eurydice following closely behind him. The path back was long and dark. As Orpheus walked, doubt began creeping into his mind. Was Eurydice really behind him? Was this some kind of trick? The silence around him only made these fears grow stronger with every single step. Finally, just as he reached the edge of the underworld, almost back in the light of the living world, Orpheus could not fight his doubt any longer. He turned around to make sure Eurydice was truly there, and in that single, painful moment he saw her. But because he had looked back too soon, before they had both fully left the underworld, Eurydice was pulled away from him instantly. She disappeared back into the darkness forever. Orpheus had lost her a second time, and this time there would be no going back. This story reminds us that even the most powerful love cannot always defeat fate. Sometimes doubt itself can take away the very thing we are trying to protect. But not every love story ends in sadness. Let us look at another one that ends quite differently. This next story is about a woman named Psyche. Psyche was known for being incredibly beautiful. So beautiful, in fact, that it caused jealousy among the gods themselves. Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, became envious of her. In her jealousy, Aphrodite sent her own son, a god named Cupid, to cause trouble for Psyche. But something unexpected happened instead. Cupid, upon seeing Psyche, fell deeply in love with her. The two of them married secretly. But there was one strange rule that Psyche had to follow. She was never allowed to see her husband's true face. Cupid would only visit her in complete darkness. For a while, Psyche accepted this condition. But over time, her curiosity grew too strong. One night, she lit a small lamp, just to catch a glimpse of her husband's face. When she saw him, she was amazed by his beauty. But a single drop of hot oil fell from her lamp, waking Cupid instantly. Feeling betrayed that she had broken her promise, Cupid left her and returned to his mother. Psyche was heartbroken. She begged Aphrodite for a chance to win her husband back. Aphrodite agreed, but only if Psyche completed several extremely difficult tasks. Each task seemed almost impossible to finish, but Psyche did not give up. Time after time, she pushed through fear and hardship, determined to prove her love was real. In the end, her determination paid off. Cupid returned to her, and the two were finally reunited for good. Unlike the story of Orpheus, this story ends happily. Psyche's love and her determination were finally rewarded. These two stories show us something important about being human. Love can bring us joy, and love can bring us heartbreak. Sometimes love wins. Sometimes it does not. But through it all, these stories remind us of just how powerful human emotion truly is. Love stories show one side of being human. Now let us look at the heroes who fought monsters and faced dangers far greater than any of us could imagine. Chapter 6: The First Heroes. Now that we know the gods, let us meet the humans who dared to challenge fate itself. These were not ordinary people. They faced monsters, completed impossible tasks, and pushed themselves far beyond normal human limits. Let us begin with a hero named Perseus. Perseus was given a very difficult and very dangerous task. He was ordered to bring back the head of a terrifying creature named Medusa. Medusa was not always a monster, but because of a curse placed upon her, she had become something truly horrifying. Instead of hair, she had living snakes growing from her head. and if anyone looked directly into her eyes, they would instantly turn to stone. Many brave men had tried to defeat Medusa before. None of them had ever returned. But Perseus was clever as well as brave. Before setting out, he received help from powerful gods. He was given a shiny, mirror-like shield, a sharp sword, and a pair of winged sandals that allowed him to fly. Using the shield, Perseus was able to look at Medusa's reflection, instead of looking directly into her eyes. This clever trick allowed him to approach her safely. With one swift strike of his sword, Perseus cut off Medusa's head, without ever turning to stone himself. But his journey did not end there. On his way home, Perseus came across another problem. A beautiful princess, named Andromeda, was chained to a rock near the edge of the sea. She had been left there as a sacrifice to a terrifying sea monster. Perseus did not hesitate. Using the very same power that had helped him defeat Medusa, he fought off the monster and saved the princess. The two of them soon fell in love, and Perseus returned home as a true hero. Now let us move on to another famous hero named Theseus. Theseus lived in the great city of Athens. At the time, Athens was dealing with a horrible situation. Every few years, young men and women were sent away as a tribute to a distant island. There, they were forced into a massive maze called the labyrinth. Inside this maze lived a terrifying creature, half man and half bull. This monster was known as the Minotaur. No one who entered the maze ever came out alive. The Minotaur was too strong, and the maze itself was almost impossible to escape. Theseus decided enough was enough. He volunteered himself to enter the maze, determined to kill the Minotaur once and for all, and put an end to this suffering. Before he entered, a princess named Ariadne fell in love with him. She gave him a simple but clever gift, a ball of string. Theseus tied one end of the string near the entrance of the maze. As he walked deeper inside, he carefully unrolled the string behind him, marking his path along the way. Eventually, Theseus found the Minotaur deep within the maze. A fierce battle followed between the hero and the monster. In the end, Theseus was victorious. He defeated the Minotaur, ending its reign of terror forever. Using the string he had left behind, Theseus was able to find his way back out of the maze. Athens was finally free from this horrible tradition. Now let us talk about the strongest hero of them all, Heracles, also known as Hercules. Heracles was said to be the strongest man alive. His strength was far beyond anything a normal human could ever possess. But Heracles' story does not begin with glory. It begins with tragedy. Due to a powerful curse placed upon him, Heracles was driven into a state of complete madness. During this madness, he lost control completely and did something absolutely terrible. He harmed his own family without even realizing what he was doing. When his mind finally cleared and Heracles understood what had happened, he was overwhelmed with grief and guilt. He knew he had to find a way to make up for this terrible mistake. So, Heracles was given a task. 12 extremely difficult tasks, in fact. These became known as the 12 labors of Heracles. Each task seemed harder than the last. He was asked to defeat massive, dangerous creatures. He had to capture wild animals that no ordinary man could ever hope to control. He even had to travel into the underworld itself, facing dangers most humans could never imagine. Time after time, Heracles succeeded, no matter how impossible the task seemed. Slowly, through this suffering and this effort, he began to make peace with the terrible mistake of his past. By the end of his 12 labors, Heracles had proven himself not just as the strongest man alive, but as one of the greatest heroes in all of Greek mythology. Finally, let us talk about Jason and his incredible journey. Jason was destined to become a great king. But before he could claim his throne, he was given one final challenge. He had to sail across dangerous seas to find a rare, magical treasure, a golden sheepskin known as the Golden Fleece. This journey was far too dangerous for Jason to attempt alone. So, he gathered a team of the greatest heroes in the land. Together, they built a powerful ship and set sail on an incredible adventure. Along the way, Jason and his crew faced countless dangers. They fought off monstrous creatures. They sailed through deadly, narrow passages between crashing rock. They even faced enemies, both human and mythical, at nearly every stop along their journey. But through teamwork, courage, and clever thinking, Jason and his crew eventually reached their destination. With a little help from powerful magic, Jason successfully claimed the Golden Fleece and began his long journey home. So, there we have it. 4 of the greatest heroes in all of Greek mythology. Perseus, who defeated a monster simply by using clever thinking. Theseus, who conquered a deadly maze with nothing more than a simple ball of string. Heracles, who turned his darkest mistake into his greatest triumph. And Jason, who led an entire team across dangerous seas in search of legendary treasure. Each of these heroes faced impossible odds. Each of them found a way to overcome their challenges through courage, cleverness, or sheer determination. But even the strongest heroes could not escape everything. Because soon a war was coming. A war so massive it would involve gods, heroes, and entire nations. And this time, not even the greatest heroes alive could avoid what was about to happen. These heroes were strong, but even the strongest hero cannot escape a war that the gods themselves started. Chapter 7: The Trojan War. Every great story needs a great war. And in Greek mythology, no war is bigger than the war fought over the city of Troy. But strangely, this massive war did not begin with soldiers or kings. It began with something much smaller. A golden apple. One day, a wedding was taking place on Mount Olympus. Almost every god was invited to attend. But one goddess was left off the list. Her name was Eris, the goddess of trouble and chaos. Feeling insulted, Eris decided to cause a problem of her own. She threw a golden apple into the middle of the celebration. On this apple were written a few simple words. For the most beautiful. Instantly, 3 powerful goddesses began to argue. Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite each believed that they deserved this apple more than the others. To settle this argument, they needed someone to make a final decision. So, they chose a young prince named Paris to judge between them. Each goddess tried to convince Paris to choose her. Hera offered him power and control over great kingdoms. Athena offered him wisdom and skill in battle. But Aphrodite offered him something different. She promised him the love of the most beautiful woman in the entire world. Paris, without much hesitation, chose Aphrodite. But there was a problem. This most beautiful woman was named Helen, and she was already married to a powerful king. Aphrodite did not let this stop her. She helped Paris take Helen away, back to his home city of Troy. When Helen's husband discovered what had happened, he was furious. He gathered soldiers and allies from all across Greece, determined to bring her back, no matter the cost. And so, a massive war began. Thousands of Greek soldiers sailed across the sea to attack the powerful city of Troy. Among these soldiers was the greatest warrior alive. His name was Achilles. Achilles was almost impossible to defeat in battle. His strength and skill made him the most feared fighter on either side of the war. But even the greatest warrior has his limits. During the war, Achilles got into a serious argument with the Greek commander. He felt disrespected and deeply insulted by how he had been treated. Because of this, Achilles made a bold decision. He refused to fight any longer. Without Achilles, the Greek army began to struggle. Troy's soldiers pushed back harder and harder, gaining ground that seemed impossible before. Achilles' closest friend watched this happening with growing concern. Eventually, he made a risky decision of his own. He put on Achilles' armor and entered the battle himself, hoping to scare the enemy into retreating. But this plan ended in tragedy. Achilles' best friend was killed in battle by Hector, the prince of Troy. When Achilles learned the news, his anger and his grief became almost unbearable. All his pride and all his stubbornness disappeared in an instant. He rejoined the war immediately, determined to find one person: Hector. The two warriors finally faced each other in a final, brutal duel. The fight was intense, but in the end, Achilles proved victorious. He defeated Hector, ending the life of Troy's greatest defender. With Hector gone, Troy's hope began to fade quickly. But even without their greatest warrior, the city's walls remained strong. The Greeks could not simply break through, no matter how hard they tried. So, one clever soldier came up with a plan that did not rely on strength at all. It relied on deception. The Greeks built a massive wooden horse. But this was no ordinary gift. Hidden inside its hollow body were some of Greece's best soldiers, waiting silently for the right moment. The Greeks left this horse outside the gates of Troy. Then they pretended to sail away completely, as if giving up on the war entirely. The people of Troy celebrated wildly. They believed the long war had finally ended. Curious and excited, they brought the massive wooden horse inside their own city walls. That night, while the entire city celebrated and slept peacefully, the hidden soldiers quietly climbed out. They opened the city gates from the inside, allowing the rest of the Greek army to rush in. Troy never saw it coming. The city that had survived 10 long years of war fell within a single night. Fires spread through the streets. Buildings crumbled. The once mighty city of Troy was destroyed completely. This war teaches us something important about pride and about deception. It shows how something as small as a single golden apple could lead to a war so massive it would be remembered for thousands of years. It also shows that strength alone is not always enough. Sometimes cleverness and patience can accomplish what brute force cannot. The war that began with a beautiful woman and a stolen love finally came to an end with fire and destruction. But for one soldier who fought bravely throughout this entire war, the story does not end here. The war is over, but for one man, the real journey is only just beginning. Chapter 8: The Long Journey Home. The war at Troy had finally ended. For most soldiers, this meant it was time to go home. For one man named Odysseus, this should have been simple. He had fought bravely for 10 long years. Now all he wanted was to return to his wife and his son waiting for him back home. But nothing about this journey would be simple at all. Instead of a quick trip home, Odysseus' journey would take him 10 more years. 10 years, filled with danger, magic, and impossible choices. His first major challenge came on a small, unknown island. There, Odysseus and his men discovered a cave filled with food and supplies. But this cave belonged to someone else. A giant with only one eye in the middle of his forehead. This creature was called a Cyclops. The Cyclops trapped Odysseus and his men inside the cave. One by one, he began eating them as prisoners. Odysseus knew he had to think quickly if he wanted to survive. So, he came up with a clever plan. He gave the Cyclops strong wine to drink. Once the giant fell asleep, drunk and unaware, Odysseus and his men blinded his single eye. In the chaos that followed, Odysseus and his surviving men managed to escape. But this victory came at a price. The Cyclops was the son of a powerful god of the sea. And because of this, that god would curse Odysseus, making his journey home even harder than before. As Odysseus continued sailing, he faced yet another dangerous challenge. His ship approached an island home to strange, magical creatures. These creatures sang beautiful songs so tempting that sailors could not resist them. Once lured close enough, ships would crash and sailors would die. These creatures were known as the Sirens. Odysseus wanted to hear their song, but he did not want to die because of it. So, he came up with another clever plan. He ordered his men to block their ears completely with wax so they could not hear the singing at all. But Odysseus himself wanted to experience it. So, he ordered his men to tie him tightly to the mast of the ship. No matter how much he begged or struggled, his men were instructed not to release him. As the ship sailed past, Odysseus heard the Sirens' beautiful song calling out to him. He pulled and struggled, desperate to reach them. But his men kept him tied down until the danger had completely passed. Because of this clever plan, Odysseus became one of the few people to ever hear the Sirens' song and survive. But his troubles were far from over. Odysseus' journey soon led him to the island of a powerful witch. This witch used her magic to trap Odysseus and keep him there far longer than he wanted to stay. Eventually, he managed to leave her island, only to face another challenge. On his way home, Odysseus became trapped once again. This time by a magical creature known as a nymph. She fell deeply in love with him, and refused to let him leave her island. For years, Odysseus remained stuck there, longing for home, but unable to escape. His journey home, which should have taken only a short time, continued to stretch on year after year. Meanwhile, back on his home island, someone else was waiting patiently. His wife. Odysseus' wife had been alone for almost 20 years. During this time, many men believed Odysseus was dead. They came to her home again and again, hoping she would choose a new husband instead. But Odysseus' wife never gave up hope. She refused every single suitor, no matter how much pressure she faced. She truly believed that her husband would return to her one day. To avoid choosing a new husband, she used clever tricks of her own, buying herself time year after year. Her loyalty and her patience were just as remarkable as any of her husband's adventures at sea. Finally, after 10 long years of struggle and countless dangerous obstacles, Odysseus found a way to finally return home. When he arrived, his home was filled with men who had taken over his household, believing he would never return. But Odysseus was not the same man who had left for war all those years ago. He was wiser now and more determined than ever. With careful planning, Odysseus dealt with these unwanted guests, reclaiming his home once and for all. Finally, after everything he had been through, Odysseus was reunited with his wife and his son. After 10 years of brutal war and 10 more years of dangerous travel at sea, Odysseus had finally achieved the only thing he truly wanted. Not glory, not treasure, just to return home to the people he loved most. This story reminds us of something important. Sometimes the greatest victory is not a battle won or a monster defeated. Sometimes it is simply finding your way back to the place and the people you belong with. After 10 years of war and 10 more years at sea, one man finally gets the only thing he ever wanted: to go home. Closing. Why it still matters. And there we have it, the complete story of Greek mythology. Let us take a moment to look back at everything we just covered. It all began with nothing at all, just empty space called chaos. From that emptiness came earth and sky and their powerful children, the Titans. One of those Titans, named Cronus, took power by force. But fear and cruelty led to his own downfall when his son, Zeus, rose up against him. Zeus and his brothers and sisters defeated the Titans and became the new gods of Mount Olympus. Each god had their own power, their own strengths, and their own very human flaws. From there we met great heroes: Perseus, who defeated Medusa; Theseus, who conquered a deadly maze; Heracles, who turned his greatest mistake into his greatest triumph; and Jason, who sailed across dangerous seas for a legendary treasure. Then came the greatest war of them all. A war started over a golden apple and a stolen woman named Helen. A war that brought down the mighty city of Troy. And finally we followed Odysseus on his long, difficult journey home. A journey that took him 10 more years after 10 years of war, simply to return to the people he loved. From nothing to gods to heroes to war to home. That is the complete journey of Greek mythology. But why, after thousands of years, do these stories still matter to us today? The answer is simple. These gods and these heroes were never truly perfect. They felt jealousy just like we do. They felt pride and anger and fear just like we do. They fell in love, made terrible mistakes, and sometimes found redemption afterward. In other words, even with all their power, these gods acted exactly like humans. That is exactly why these stories have lasted so long. We do not just read about gods and monsters. We see pieces of ourselves reflected in every single story. You may not realize it, but these old stories are still part of our daily lives, even today. When someone talks endlessly about themselves, we call them a narcissist. This word comes directly from a Greek myth. When someone has one small weakness, despite being otherwise strong, we call it their Achilles heel. This phrase comes from the hero we just talked about. Even something as simple as a hidden trap or a trick is often called a Trojan horse, named after the very trick that ended the war at Troy. These are just a few examples. Once you start noticing them, you will realize just how much of our modern language and even our modern stories, movies, and games still borrow from these ancient myths. That is the true power of Greek mythology. It is not simply a collection of old, forgotten tales. It is a mirror reflecting human nature itself. Our fears, our pride, our love, and our courage, all captured inside these ancient stories. And that is why, thousands of years later, we are still talking about them today. If you enjoyed this journey through Greek mythology, make sure to hit the like button right now. It truly helps this channel grow. If you are new here, consider subscribing so you never miss another journey like this one. And before you go, let us know in the comments below. Which part of this story did you enjoy the most? Was it the rise of Zeus? The bravery of the heroes? Or the long journey home of Odysseus? Thank you for watching until the very end, and we will see you in the next story.